Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Ange. I want to start by recognising and acknowledging First Nations peoples and traditional owners of the lands across Australia that we work, live and play on and in. Here we go. But particularly Kombumerri and the Yagamba peoples here today. And I want to pay my respects to elders and to country. So today I'll be presenting a brief look at some work that we've done with the Reef Authority, and the previous session was a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about. Now, this project brought together social scientists, data and spatial scientists, and the spatial planning team from the Authority. And what we were tasked with doing is to come up with a tool and a method to start to collect data for the Southern Plan of Management consultation process. Some of you may have seen the work that we did if you did do the online form. And so the Southern Plan of Management was mentioned just earlier, and we're assuming you all know that this is largely or almost the southern 50% of the marine park. It's around 42%, I believe. And what we were asked to do is to come up with a way of measuring social values of this area. Now, as you just heard, there's quite a wide range of measuring social values, and we were tasked with going beyond just ecosystem services to incorporate not just the those intrinsic and instrumental values, but relational values as well. So we turned to the IPBES framework. Some of you may know this. It was published in 2022, and it represents the latest global thinking. It was a massive undertaking across many years and many researchers around the world that helps us really understand how we can start to define and measure social values of nature and how people relate to it. So working with the social scientists at the Reef Authority, our lovely Michelle and Cindy, we came up with a list of 14 potential values that would be relevant to places in the Southern Planning area. And these were all specific place-based values. So this is just a sample of some of that list here, just to give you a taste of what some of these actually look like in terms of the wording. So we were able to then to use this list of 14 plus, of course, another category being other, so people could add in additional values if they felt like their values weren't included. And we developed an online survey form that allowed us, or with using Survey 123, which is one of the Esri tools, which allowed us to show them a map of the planning area. And we asked them to zoom into an area that was important to them, put a pin on that map, and then our series of questions asked them about this place. So we asked them broad questions around what they do there, how they get there, what they perceive to be the threats to this area are, as well as this list of social values. So first we asked them to tell us which of these values are relevant to them at that particular location. Then they were presented with a short list of whichever value types they had selected. And then the next step was to understand how important these value types are relative to the other values that they had selected. So to do this, we gave them a budget of 100 points, and they had to distribute these points across the different value types. They were instructed and given examples to tell us or to place more points to indicate a stronger or greater importance, and fewer points on those that were less important. So what I'm showing you here is just a subset of the data. The consultation data hasn't been publicly released yet. This is not the entirety of that consultation data. What I'm doing here is just showing you some of the data, what it looks like, and how we might use that in making planning decisions. So what you can see here is the results of 130 different responses and the locations that they selected in their maps. Now, the larger the circle, the more people selected sites within that area. I'll go into a bit more detail in a second. Now, this is where we get the information about the magnitude or importance of the different social value types. I know you can't read the labels on the bottom, but bear with me, we'll go through some of them. What this information here shows us is the total number of points distributed across the whole planning area. So we had 130 responses in this data set. Each person had 100 points. That means there's 13,000 points in total. So then you can look at where those points were distributed across the different value types to understand what are the most important and what are the least important values. So first we've got, by far, most people value places in the planning area for appreciating the natural beauty and features in the site. The second highest value is that these places contribute to their well-being. And then almost equal third are these values around being uncrowded, this love of the place, that's that deep concern, deep connection to the location, as well as a sense of caring or concern, so that's that stewardship value. We could also see that for a number of people, it's also a good source of seafood or other resources, so you can start to imagine these are the fishing community here too. So going back to our map, so what we did then with this data is we could put it into a pretty basic dashboard. This was just to demonstrate to you some of the things that we can do with this information. So down here is that chart I showed you just before of how those points are distributed across the entire planning area. And we can add in whatever other questions we've asked. So we've got information about what broad categories of activities that they've done. We've got how they got there, what sort of vessels they were using. I was going to try and be brave and show you a live demonstration of how you can use the dashboard. I decided against that, probably a good idea. So instead I've got a screenshot of what happens when you start to zoom into particular areas in the map. So this is the Capricorn Bunker area, and for this data set we can see maybe you just have to trust me, that the pattern of the points distribution across the value types is pretty much the same as for the entire area. Then if we zoom into other areas like the Middle and South Islands, we start to see some changes in how those points are distributed. Now these islands are quite close to the coastline for people who don't know these islands. And we can start to see that they're putting more points towards the values of safety and security reasons. So, having good access and being protected from weather. Conversely, economic values are much, much lower here. Then we can start to look at, well, who are these people who've contributed to this particular data set? And we can see that most of them are going to these sites via sailing vessels, so they're yachties, and they're really after that, secure anchoring places, and probably less interested in generating some income from that particular trip. So I hope that gives you a bit of a sense of how this data might be collected and used. So when you do that sort of spatial integration of social values and draw from like some of the leading thinkers in how we value nature, how we define it and how we measure it. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could start to collaborate across some of the previous speakers and really start to inform that framework in a much more holistic way than even we've tried. So, and the other great thing about a system like this is you can start to see where you might have areas of potential conflict or for potential support for planning decisions, just depending on, what people are really valuing at those particular sites. So thank you very much. Thanks to the Reef Authority team too for supporting this work, and more than happy to talk about social values and spatial integration of these values anytime. Thanks.